Hey everybody, Chris the Old Ass Retro Gamer here. Today I have another special episode lined up for you all, licensed games. But today it's not going to be about good ones, this one's going to be about awful ones. Every time I discuss this topic, I feel that it's best if I have someone else chiming in. And who do I have to talk about this topic with me? I have not one, but two special guests. That's right, two. Dos. I have NINTENJOEL lined up for another appearance, as well as a newcomer to the channel, and that is John RIGGS of Rigged Games. Both of their channels are awesome, and I will put the links in the description below to their channels. Yes, licensed video games. Awful licensed video games. The ones that I have chosen aren't directly tied into any specific movie, television show, or comic book. That's just the rules that I decided to go by this time. But when it comes to my guests, the sky's the limit. So I have 3 selections, as do my guests. So I will show off one of the selections I've chosen, and then we will go to one of the guests to see their picks, come back to me, go back to another guest, and come back to me for the final pick. Sounds fair, right? So what is my first choice for a terrible licensed game? That would be Star Trek Shattered Universe. I've brought it up before. I am a huge Star Trek fanboy. I have been ever since I was a small child. I'm old enough to have seen the original motion picture in the theater. That's why I'm the old-ass retro gamer. While there aren't a lot of great Star Trek games available for the consoles, most of them are available for PC. I've played a few of them. Some of them are cool. Star Trek Bridge Commander and Elite Force 2 are kind of rad. Out of all of the Star Trek games that have been released for the home consoles, I find this one to be the absolute worst. Why? Because it doesn't do anything good with the license. It is a starship combat simulator without really using starships. When it comes to Star Trek, everybody thinks about the Enterprise or a Klingon bird of prey or just starships in general. And when you say Star Trek Starship Combat Simulator, you automatically think, I'm going to be able to play as the Enterprise or the Excelsior or some other gigantic starship from the series, and I'm going to be able to take out waves of Klingons and Jem'Hadar and whatnot, maybe a few Romulans. Not in this game. In this one, you play as this tiny little attack shuttlecraft, and you attack wave after wave of other little shuttlecrafts.
Dumb.
Sometimes you can take pot shots at larger ships, doesn't do much. And since when has Star Trek been about tiny little shuttlecrafts doing all of the dirty work? Never. I wanted to play as something like the Defiant, or the Excelsior, or even the Enterprise E. No. Doesn't help that the controls are kind of broken. It's extremely loose and kind of floaty, and you feel really underpowered, and sometimes some of the missions are just stupid. The graphics are actually pretty nice. When you're doing the dogfights, in the cutscenes, oh my god, it is some of the worst faces I've ever seen in a video game. Everyone's face is all distorted and kind of bumpy and bubbly, and they kind of look like Rocky Dennis. Extremely disappointing. And sometimes that's worse than it just being flat out terrible. Star Trek Legacy. Now there's a Star Trek game. So now let's go to NINTENJOEL and find out what he picked for his 3 terrible licensed games.
What's up guys, NINTENJOEL here once again, and I am just giving a little bit of input on my buddy, the old-ass retro gamer's topic of 3 bad licensed games. What are the 3 worst licensed games that you can think of? And this topic isn't as easy as you would think it would be because I don't really collect for complete sets of anything, so I don't generally collect bad games. I do have a few bad games because of the nostalgic factor, but I don't have a lot, so I kind of had to dig around, but I found 3 turds for you guys, and these games are games that you should by no means play. They're just no good. So without further ado, here we go. Alright, the first game that I'm going to talk about that is just terrible is Ghostbusters for the Sega Master System. I just got this recently, actually, and I didn't know any better. There's decent Ghostbuster games out there. This game is a convoluted mess. There's just so much that you can do, but it's not presented well, and it's got a very steep learning curve. And you start out the game and you're like driving vertically and you don't really know what to do. And then there's like a map screen. If you could even get that far, you get to this like map screen. And you can kind of get to destinations and stuff, but it's really hard to control and not self-explanatory. And then if you can make it past that, you end up in a side view where you have 2 Ghostbusters and they both have laser beams and you're trying to capture a ghost inside the 2 laser beams, but it's really hard, and again, not explained, not self-explanatory. You can upgrade things on your vehicle that are not explained, and it's just a very clunky, weird game, and might I add, the music is terrible. If you want to ruin the Ghostbusters theme, just play this game for like literally 7 minutes. Like, that's all it's gonna take. It's just bad. So yeah, Ghostbusters for the Sega Master System, not a game I really recommend. Okay, second game that I have for you guys is definitely a turd sandwich. However, this is a game that I have a lot of nostalgia for. I actually grew up with this game, and I actually tried to get far in it, and man, I never did. This game is impossible. It's just, I know it's not impossible, but it takes so much patience, and I have some patience. The game I'm talking about is Fester's Quest for Nintendo. This is a well-known title, and some people do love this game. Like I said, I do have nostalgic feelings for this game. Graphically, it's okay. You know, musically, it's alright. I like the overhead view. I like your upgrades to your weapons and stuff. It's almost like a shooter. But the amount of enemies that come at you, and leaving the screen for half a second, maybe only an inch to the right, and then coming back, and all the enemies have respawned. Oh man, it gets on your nerves. It gets really freaking grating, and after a while the music gets grating, and after a while just everything seems long and convoluted, and much like Ghostbusters, not very well explained. It's just not, it's not self-explanatory, and there's a lot of stuff to this game. So yeah, Fester's Quest definitely falls in the umbrella of don't play this game. Alright, third game that I have for you guys. Last game that really sucks, that's a licensed game. I know all of mine are licensed on movies pretty much, although Fester's Quest technically would really be licensed from the show originally. But this one is from a movie, and the movie's not good either from what I hear. I have purposely never watched this movie, and damn, I'm really upset at myself for even playing this game. That is Batman Forever for the Super Nintendo, and man, some people are like, the graphics are so good. Yeah, if you like Mortal Kombat digitized graphics, yeah, I guess the graphics are okay. The music is terrible. It is so bad. The controls are absolutely horrendous. It's amazing this game got released. I had no idea how to get past the first level. Like, I couldn't use my grappling hook to go up, because you can only shoot it in certain places, and you have to press, like, select and up at the same time, or some crazy crap like that. And then once you get to another, like, level, like to an upper level, I couldn't get back down, and it was just, it was a mess. It really was. It was just a complete mess, and the graphics are outdated. They all look like their heads are too big. Batman's head is too big, and it's just clunky and weird. It's, like, literally one of the worst games I've ever played. I am so sorry that I got this game. Don't ever play Batman Forever for Super Nintendo. Don't pay money for this. That's for sure. Even if you're going for a complete set, be sure to not pay money for this game. It's so bad. People should pay you to play that game.
I completely agree with Ghostbusters. It seems no matter what console that game was ported to, it is always going to be god-awful and terrible. I have it for the Atari 2600, and yeah, it sucks, yeah. Same goes for Batman Forever. That game is god-awful also. I own it for the Genesis, so I feel ya, bruh. Although I do have to disagree with you on Fester's Quest, I actually really kind of enjoy this game. This was one of the first games I ever got for the Nintendo. I have vivid memories of my father playing this game, and he rarely ever played Nintendo games. I think the only other one I ever saw him play was Dragon Warrior. But he got into it, and because of him getting into it, I kind of got into it, so... I mean, yeah, I don't think it's the greatest game ever, but... yeah. I understand why people don't like it. So what's my second choice for a terrible licensed game? One of the other movie franchises that I am really obsessed with is Tron. So when you have a movie series that is sort of based around video games, you would expect that the video games based on said movie would be pretty good. Sometimes that's not the case. Well, I did enjoy the Tron Evolution game that came out for the PS3, Xbox 360, and the PSP, and the one that came out for the DS is alright. There was one more game that was tied in with the release of Tron Legacy back in 2010 that came out for the Wii. And because of the title of this video, you pretty much guess that it's crap. And you'd be right. Tron Evolution's Battle Grids. This one is a collection of mini games.
Dumb.
You have a disc battle, a light cycle race, a tank fight, and that highlight game from the original movie. All of them are broken, and they're just flat out not fun. You have all this material to work from, even a television show that was going to come out pretty soon, and they basically just made Mario Party with the Tron license. It has maybe a half an hour playtime tops before you're going to get completely sick of it like I did. Yeah, you can customize a character, big whoop. Yeah, it has a 4-player mode, big whoop. I don't think it ever had online capabilities, which is pretty shitty. But at least it's Wii Motion Plus compatible. That's something. It's unplayable because the controls are just so freaking broken. You can never get anything to happen the way you want it to. The graphics are terrible. Yeah, it has a couple of renditions of the music from Tron Legacy, which was by Daft Punk, which I thought was flippin' amazing. But it looks like crap, it plays like crap. Not good at all. And so why do I own this? I'm a completionist. I wanted to have all the Tron things. So that's my second pick. Let's see what John Riggs has picked for his 3 terrible licensed games. Looking forward to this one.
How you feeling? You got Riggs here, and when I hear of like the worst licenses, I want to talk about the companies first. I think of 3 of them. I think of THQ, Acclaim, and LJN. And I want to showcase one of each of those games, starting off with the big one, LJN. The first game I think of is the Uncanny X-Men. Had so much potential. One thing that it did do is that your mutant abilities are unlimited, like they should be. There's been a lot of other X-Men games where your mutant abilities are limited. It's like it shouldn't be that way. It should be unlimited. The problem is that it forces you to play as a 2-player, so the second player, if you're using the computer player, always gets stuck all the time. And you have to deal with it. Now you can choose the second player to be Nightcrawler, so you can just walk through the walls. It's probably your best bet. Unfortunately, no one really stands out in this game. Like, you can fly, but not really. You can jump, but straight up, which serves as nothing. It's just a terrible game. It had so much potential, too. Terrible, terrible game. And the graphics are like really... Like, I spent one time, I swear, 5 minutes punching an item. I thought it was an enemy. Didn't really get me anywhere, so that comes to mind immediately as far as a terrible licensed game. Another one that comes to mind is, as much as I love Star Wars, I had to grab it because it was Star Wars. Unfortunately, Yoda Stories, this is a real game. If you haven't heard of it, look it up. It actually starts out looking really cool. The title screen, it's the Star Wars music, but almost like a rendition thereof. And then the game itself is a really choppy maze crawler, kind of, but like... It moves really, really stiff. Like, it's almost like it's missing frames of animation or something like that. It's kind of like when you take a video and compress it and things move like too quickly. Things kind of look like that. Hard to control, hard to see what's going on. Yoda Stories, as much as I love Star Wars, it's pretty, pretty terrible. And I'm a huge WWE fan. Lifelong member of the WWE universe. I have the network, $9.99, and I'm glad I didn't pay that much for this game here. WrestleMania, the arcade game. It started out for a long time as a wrestling fan that you get the wrestling games inspired by wrestling games, but not really. A lot of times it was like you'd get the wrestling games that were made by someone who said, hey, we need a wrestling game. And they didn't know anything about wrestling, and they gave you like a little flyer of like who the wrestlers were, and it wasn't really a wrestling game. It didn't really feel like it. So they went the opposite direction in this and made a fighting game. So it was like, you know, as if you've combined Mortal Kombat minus the fatalities with wrestlers. Didn't work out that way. Instead, in this game, you get cool looking graphics, cool looking effects, still not a wrestling game. This was a super huge letdown. As much as I love wrestling games too, but I still have a copy of it. Adds to the collection anyway. So, when I think of like, you know, terrible licensed games, all 3 of these, skip them if you can. Avoid them at all costs. How about that?
I haven't played Yoda Stories, but I'm aware of it. I remember reading about it coming out for the PC as like a little Windows game that was supposed to be like randomized every time you played it. X-Men I did rent when I was a child, and I returned it the same night that I rented it. My brother and I absolutely hated it. So I'm right there with you, bruh. But I do kind of have fond memories of WrestleMania, the arcade game. I remember playing that in the arcade all the time around the same time that Mortal Kombat was popular. When I couldn't get to a Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter cabinet because it was too crowded, I would usually play the WrestleMania arcade game as a substitute. I always found it kind of entertaining. I don't remember ever playing any of the home console ports, so maybe they're shitty. So what is my number 1 choice for a terrible licensed game? While this isn't my least favorite licensed game of all time, it is just one that I picked for this video. I might do a terrible movie-based video game list later on. I feel I need to give this game the #1 spot because it is based on a very popular comic book character, and it is wholly awful on every conceivable level. Superman Shadow of Apocalypse. I picked this up at a half-price books not too long ago for I think a couple of dollars, and I was like, hey, Superman game. Okay, whatever. It's based off of the cartoon that was popular at the time that was on alongside Batman the Animated Series. And holy shit, every aspect of this game is... The graphics are not good. I know it's trying to mimic the cartoon look, but everything's just overly angular and just undetailed, and it looks like garbage. The music, I do believe, is taken right out of the cartoon also. Yay. But what kills this game is the absolutely flat-out broken controls. You can't do anything in this game. Everything requires some weird combination of button presses and directional presses. Flying just absolutely sucks. You're always banging into crap because the controls are extremely floaty and not responsive and kind of delayed. The fighting system just sucks. It asks you to be a button masher, but it doesn't respond fast enough to be a button masher. Do you get what I'm saying? And everything you fight in this game is able to take out Superman, including a generic thug. The computer is able to control everything perfectly from the beginning, and you're struggling the entire game to just pull off one punch or maybe even do a jump. It sucks. It is so bad. There's one mission where you have to like chase a helicopter, and because the flying mechanics are so shitty, it took me like 3 tries just to be able to catch up to a fucking helicopter. Everything flying with Superman, since that is like what he's known for the most, should just be smooth as hell. If they can get Spider-Man's web slinging right in those Spider-Man games that were based on the films and even Ultimate Spider-Man, why can't they ever get Superman's flying right? I don't know. I can't understand it for the life of me. And I've played a lot of Superman games. I've played Superman 64. I've played the Superman Returns game. Yes, Superman 64 is worse than this game by a long shot. I don't own it, so I couldn't pick it. But this one is a close second. Everything about it is terrible. Terrible. Any way you look at it, Superman Shadow of Apocalypse is one of the most god-awful games I own. This is hot garbage.
He ain't lying.
So those are my picks for some terrible licensed games. I want to thank my 2 guests for participating in this video, NINTENJOEL and John RIGGS. Like I said, I will put links to their channels in the description below. Check them out and subscribe. Speaking of subscribing, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, why don't you? If you're watching this video, couldn't hurt. And if you like what you just watched, how about clicking that thumbs up button? You know, the one with the... Because it lets me know that I'm doing something right and you're enjoying yourself. So, clicky click click. And please share the video on the social medias, wherever you see fit. Too many to list. Pick your favorite one. I trust you. And please comment below. Let me know what some of your least favorite licensed games are. I still have plenty of them in my collection. I had to narrow it down to 3. Trust me, it was tough. I had a nice little stack about this tall of games I wanted to talk about, but I said, brevity might be a good thing. You got 2 guests. Gotta let them talk too sometime, you know? So, there's that. So until next time, I am Chris, the old-ass retro gamer, signing off.
Three turds in a bucket. You know, there's a lot of bad games out there. There really are. Do yourself a favor. Stay away from licensed games. Do yourself a favor and stay away from LJN games. That's all I have for you guys. Thank you, Old Ass Retro Gamer, for having me on your channel. I appreciate it. I love your channel. It's amazing. Thanks for having me on. Keep rocking the retro games.
Bruh.